Welcome to Dad Talk Today. The podcast for dads facing some of the toughest moments of their lives. We are here to walk with men through divorce, keep them connected to their kids, help them understand their rights, and work for change in family law courts. Moms, you are always welcome too. We are all about advocating for shared parenting and doing what is best for our kids. Here is your host, Eric Carroll.
Everybody, welcome back to Dad Talk Today. We have such a topic for you today. This is a little unplanned. We got some articles that came in last night and some things going on that we feel like you need to know about, and we need a plan of action. First off, though, before we get into that, if you're watching us here on YouTube, please make sure to subscribe. And there's a little bell up there by Dad Talk Today. Make sure that you hit that so you get notifications for when we go live. And let me tell you what, we had numerous people that got kicked out of our feed last night while we were live with a senator and Dr. Warren Farrell. We were doing a really good show, and we want to make sure that you're getting this content because we're going to need a plan of action for what's about to come up. Trust me. Also, if you'd like to support our podcast, patreon.com/dadtalktoday. The link is scrolling down there at the bottom, and I'm going to go ahead and get in today's episode because we got a lot to talk about. And I'm proud to have Jeff Morgan. Jeff, what's going on, my man?
Hey, good to see you again, Eric. Thanks for giving me a call. Fortunately, I have a work schedule that's flexible enough that allows me to get on in such a situation. I'm not a Darren Robinson, but I am a Jeff Morgan, so glad to be here. Thanks so much.
Darren sends his love, guys. He had something to do last minute, and that's one of the things, doing a live show. Things are going to come up from time to time, but I promised you we were going to have content coming out at noon Eastern time every day, Monday through Friday, and that's what we're going to do. So before we get into the topic, I want to show you guys the article. It's not just one article. We've got two articles that are really there's no other way to put it, but piss you off, okay? And then I made a call to this senator, and I left him a voicemail. It was very kind. I'm going to play that for you on the air as well, just so you know how you're being represented. So let me find a way to pull this up. Here we go. Senator Cotton. Okay. Washington, D.C. Senator Tom Cotton, Republican from Arkansas, introduced the Child Support Works Act, a bill that would increase child support payments to custodial parents and children. The Child Support Works Act would allow state child support agencies to be reimbursed for operating mandatory work programs for non-custodial parents. Guys, do you see the Title 4D connection that we're getting into already? We already know it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Looks like we need to feed the system some more. We're going to supersize them. These programs have proven effective at helping non-custodial parents develop positive work ethics and fulfill the requirements for their child support orders. This bill can be found here, guys. If you see up at the top, you can go to this link. All you got to do is type in Tom Cotton Child Support on Google, and it will pop up. You can find a copy of that bill. My biggest exception to this whole thing, and this is why we've been doing this over at Dad Talk, and I know people get mad when we talk about dads and fathers. I'm going to continue to talk about dads and fathers because I feel like they are the number one people that are under attack when it comes with the family. It says fathers have an obligation to care for their children. Child support orders can help parents fulfill this obligation by requiring them to work. This bill would provide additional resources to state child support agencies so they can help get parents back on their feet and provide for their family, Cotton said. In quotation marks, Jeff, so he called out fathers specifically. We're talking about child support orders, okay? There's many women out there that pay child support, but fathers was called out specifically, and I feel like this is an attack, and I feel like it's going to feed that Title 4D system, and if we do not get loud and do something about this kind of stuff goes under the radar. It gets in there, and it's almost impossible to reverse. This is what we know as the swamp. I feel it's a part of the establishment, and we've got to do something about it. What's your thoughts on that, my man?
I completely agree with you, Eric. And it was interesting. I've been trying to find this article, but I saw this a few years back where people were talking about what did the Democrats and Republicans agree on, because there's some things that they couldn't agree on, but they had to find something in common that they could agree on and show that they were united and being tough on things. And what they came up with was the idea of the deadbeat dad. sounds so good. The deadbeat dad is out there. Well, the deadbeat dad, of course, there are some deadbeat dads and there are some deadbeat moms, and there are a lot of deadbeats in different types of society. But the idea of the deadbeat dad as being a widespread person is a myth. And Stephen Baskerville, who we've talked about in the past, he debunked that myth. He did great research into it, and other people have noticed this. But this was the whipping boy. The whipping boy is the deadbeat dad, and Tom Cotton right now is picking up on that whipping boy. But there's a couple of other things that he has stated here too that I think also need our attention. Number one, he says fathers have an obligation to care for their children. What he is saying is, fathers, you have an obligation to be a wallet. He's not talking about being a father. And when he talks about, their children, well, why are these fathers being removed from their children's lives? As I've talked about many times, and as you know, the vast majority of no-fault divorces are filed by women. And what we're doing right now by doing this, they filed for a divorce. They will automatically win. They will never lose. That's 100% guaranteed. There are no exceptions. They win the divorce, and now they get the cash prizes. So the government should not be incentivizing divorce. And what's happening here is they're saying, "Hey, look at women," and this happens to men too. This is not a sexist issue that I'm trying to pick on one gender or the other.
Right.
But if you incentivize somebody to say, you're going to leave your husband, you're going to leave your wife, and we as a state are going to be behind you and reward you, because the reward's going to be you get to keep the kids and you get to make the other person, and in this instance, the father, pay you for divorcing him. After you've paid him because he's had to defend himself because you've sued him, after he maybe has lost 50% of his assets because you've walked away from the marital union that you had, but you've taken the assets with you. And you've made him into a position that he maybe didn't even want any of this stuff. And he's being denied daily access to his children. Even if he has 50-50, Eric, it's not the same thing as being there every single day of his life. I think that Tom Cotton does not realize how sexist of a bill this is. And I don't think he also realizes how bad the courts are, because the courts, and I have the data for this, I'm going to be working on this, but we just got some data directly from the Office of the Attorney General in Texas. And looking at the data.
I've got it ready to go.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah, let's get into it, because it wasn't just that, Jeff. That came out here recently. But when I was researching this, there was numerous articles of Paxton going around bragging about, hey, I set a new record for collecting child support. It happened in 2018, and now it's just happened in 2020. So let's explain a little bit of this. Attorney General Paxton's Child Support Division sets a new record by collecting $4.8 billion. Notice they say for Texas children. Okay.
Right.
They got that much money. It takes that much money to support the children. This was posted on November 13th of 2020. Attorney General Kim Paxton has announced that the Office of the Attorney General's Child Support Division collected more than $4.8 billion in child support for the state fiscal year 2020, setting a new record. The Child Support Division serves over 1.6 million children and surpassed the previous year's record by 10%. Texas currently leads the nation in total child support collections with more than 27 other states and territories combined. So what they're not going to tell you in that article is how much that money went back to the state. We call it a win for Texas children, but what it is it's a win for these people that are in public office. And that's the reason they want bills like this out there, because guess what? Bonuses, everything are handed out. Let's keep divorce going. Let's keep family court going, because we make money and we're going to brag about it and make you think we did something for the children. God, I love politics.
So,
I'm being
Eric,
sarcastic.
I know. The interesting thing is, I've come from a very conservative background. Well, I am a conservative right now. I didn't necessarily come from that. But, I was at a Tea Party movie in which the Attorney General spoke maybe 3 or 4 years ago, got him on videotape bragging about this stuff, because, here he's at a Tea Party movement, right? And fiscal conservatives. Well, we asked him a couple of questions, and I had the videotape, and a number of people saw that. So what he thought was, this is a great talking point. Here's what I'm doing for the state of Texas. There were some people there that said, what you're doing is absolutely wrong. It's actually destroying families. And I don't know that the politicians always realize that. But to your point, what you mentioned earlier here, Child Support Works Act would allow state child support agencies to be reimbursed for operating mandatory work programs for non-custodial parents. How is that helping the children? I thought that was supposed to be child support. Now, there has this work act, and I haven't read the whole thing yet. I just briefly glanced at it. But it turns out that I've looked at some of this stuff here in Texas, and there was a site that basically said, listen, if you're being taken into court because of child support, don't blame your spouse. It might be the state coming after you. So they are not letting people know this right off the bat, and it's creating great contention, and it's inflaming things between two people who often used to be married. Sometimes they weren't married; they had the child out of wedlock. That happens as well. But so they are doing these things because they are collecting a debt to the state. And in Texas, I mean, I cannot wait to see what Senator Cotton's going to propose next, because in Texas, if you don't pay your child support, if you can't pay your child support, which often is given indiscriminately or whatever, and you have to do this. Well, I didn't even want to be divorced, and now you're making me pay and incentivize her, and the attorney general will back that person up without exception. But they'll threaten people to have their driver's license taken away. They'll threaten them. They will have other licenses taken away. They won't let them allow them to renew their vehicle registrations. If you go to the Texas Attorney General site, you can look up on Google, Texas Attorney General Child Support Evaders. He's got pictures of people up there. Why is that? That is public shaming. That should not be done. And the reality is, they're taking people that are broke and showing how tough they are. We're going to break these people. And they're enlisting the public to come and to help them enforce the sort of things. Like, for example, in the child support roundups, they've had those as well. But the interesting thing is, in our Texas Constitution, it says that no person shall be imprisoned for debt. If you are in debt because of a child support obligation, they will throw you in prison for up to 6 months. And they call it contempt of court. This is nothing but nonsense what they're doing. They're changing the verbiage to basically reinstitute debtors' prisons. So, and I've heard these attorneys, these people that were running for judges, one lady give them a couple of days in the jail and that will straighten them up. Well, wait a minute. And if this idea it's the idea, of course, that the fathers have to pay. The fathers have to pay. Well, let's go back to this again. The non-custodial parent is the father. That's the underlying assumption. At the beginning of the 19th century, at the beginning of the 20th century, child support, like if divorce took place, the child went to the father. And then that wasn't fair, so they had the tender years doctrine. And the tender years doctrine basically said young children should be with their mothers. So now the mothers got the children. And then that was replaced with the so-called best interest of the child, which nobody knows what that means. But primarily, the underlying philosophy still is that the mother should be the custodial parent and the father should pay. The mother's the nurturer, the father is the wallet. That's the idea behind it. Now, if we really want parental equality, what we should be looking at is saying, if people are being treated fairly by the law, non-discriminatorily, that we would expect things to be, maybe half of the custodial parents would be mothers, half would be fathers. Maybe there's going to be some mothers that maybe we'll say that the mothers are better by nature or something. So maybe 55% to the mothers, 45% to the fathers or something like that. If you look at the data that we just recently got from the state of Texas, and it had everything down there, as far as I can understand it, over 93% of the fathers were non-custodial parents. 93%. And I thought what was very interesting was this, because the Attorney General of Texas, and there's a lot of things he does very, very well, I think. He's this lawsuit that he's filed against Pennsylvania and the other states. But what he did, he quoted he used the testimony of a mathematician in there. And he was talking about Z-scores and different things like that. Well, if you take a look at what is happening in Texas statistically, this is another impossibility practically. It is highly improbable that 93% of the non-custodial parents should be fathers unless there is some type of fraud or prejudice being perpetrated by the court and by our laws. So, now imagine, Eric, let's change this, because Senator Cotton said fathers have an obligation to care for their children. That's a very sexist comment. Mothers have an obligation to care for their children. That's the
Absolutely.
unspoken. He says this is the unspoken. Mothers are caring. Well, wait a minute. Let's change this around, Mr. Cotton. Let's say that the fathers are the custodial parent in 50% of the instances. Now, do you really want to say mothers have an obligation to go out there and to work to provide child support to the father? See, child support is an evil mechanism that helps to destroy families and incentivizes divorce. There are instances, and I'm not denying that there are instances that, that people have run away from their responsibilities. But when you've walked away from a marriage and you've broken up a family that you have created with the other person, that also is a great, great evil that we need to be talking about. Because the idea of marriage is what, from a societal perspective, it's to attach a father and a mother together so that together they rear children up to become good adults. And maybe what we really need is a law that says, okay, once you have a child together, you're married for the next 20 years. Because that is the best interest of the child. In almost every instance, the best interest of the child is to be raised in an intact family. But when Senator Cotton is talking about, fathers have an obligation, child support orders can help parents fulfill this obligation by requiring them to work. He's requiring them to work. Now, this is also another issue that I think we need to talk about. Is he telling them that they need to be somehow conscripted to servitude? That this is like a new, the modern day 21st century slavery, because we're going to make these people work. By God, if they can't pay, we're going to get a job program for them, and we're going to force them into work. We're going to put them into slavery. And I thought we already had a fight about slavery, and we abolished slavery on the basis of race. I guess slavery is okay now on the basis of whether you're a man or a woman, right? I don't know. But there's a lot of things just looking at this at face value. And that's why I'd love to have Senator Cotton on here as well, because what he is saying, as Nancy Pelosi would say, it doesn't pass a sniff test. That would pass her sniff test because she's always looking for another victim. But the reality is this whole thing stinks. It reeks. And this is really beneath Senator Cotton to introduce something like this. I don't know who he's playing to, but what he's saying here, this is not a good bill. And I would love to hear him defend it and actually open himself up for questions, have a dialogue with us.
So I've actually had, somebody that just wrote me and they was like, I don't think he means this by that, but I just want to go back over this again. This is an article. I would like to give Cotton an opportunity to come on here and talk about this himself, because if this isn't representing him, I don't want to make too quick of an assumption, but from what I'm reading, this needs to be called out. It is claiming that they're going to allow the agencies to be reimbursed for operating mandatory work programs for non-custodial parents. So it's like, we're going to give you resources. So it's mandatory that you get out to work to pay this child support. What stinks to high heavens is, one, is the reimbursed. We know that when you got any type of something like that, they're going to find a way to manipulate the system. And then how it called out the fathers. Fathers have an obligation to care for their children. And I mean, you've already said that. We've talked about it numerous times on here. This single-handedly, I don't know how you can back it up. There's no way to make sense or anything in support of it. But I tell you guys what, and I promised this a while ago on the Facebook when we was talking about it, I did give a call to Senator Cotton's office. We got his voicemail, but I'm going to play that for you here. And you guys bring in your questions, comments, and thoughts. And me and Jeff will talk about it for a little bit. And then we've got another article. It's going to piss you off just as bad. All right, let's get into this.
Thank you for calling the office of Senator Tom Cotton. Out of an abundance of caution and safety in response to the current coronavirus pandemic, our office is closed, but Senator Cotton and our staff are working remotely on behalf of our Kansans. Please leave a detailed message with your name and telephone number, as we are checking voicemails regularly. If you are calling with questions or concerns about the stimulus package Congress recently passed in response to the coronavirus pandemic, please also visit Senator Cotton's website, Facebook, and Twitter.
Y'all do that.
Information, website links, and telephone numbers. Thank you, and stay safe.
Senator Cotton, this is Eric Carroll. I am the host of the podcast Dad Talk Today, which I am broadcasting live from right now. So I am recording this, but I had the pleasure of seeing the bill that you're proposing about increasing child support and how it was calling out fathers. I'm going to tell you, Senator, That I feel like is one of the worst ideas on the face of this earth. 82.5% of the fathers in the United States do not have custodial rights to their children. We know about the Title 4D money and the incentives that goes back to the state. Feel like the public officials are making very big bonuses at the profit and destruction of broken families. I could think of so many other ways to make money, and to know that they're getting bonuses off of this. Something's got to change. There's a bias inside of family court, and the fact that fathers were called out single-handedly. Fatherlessness is one of the biggest epidemics when it comes to this country. And I'd love to invite you on the show, and I'd love to be able to talk to you about it. You know, there's only so much I can tell from an article, but I'd love to get your stance on this, because so far what I've seen, I vehemently disagree with. We represent about 250,000 people, and I know right now 19.7 million fathers in the United States of America do not have custodial rights to their children. And it's a shame. And to see that we're going to make laws and pass bills that's even more worse, especially during a time of a pandemic when many people are losing their jobs, and we get stimulus checks and then that's taken away from them too. It's bleeding them dry. My number is you can email me at dadtalktoday@gmail.com. I've got a lot.
10 seconds of recording time left.
Okay, I've got 10 seconds left, but I got a lot more to say. Please reach out to me, and I'd love to talk to you. Thank you, Senator. Not thank you. Let's see. He's been invited. So, Jeff, that was my voicemail to the senator. I had so much to say, and it's hard when you're right there on the spot to think of everything to go out, but I think we made the point.
You know, and Eric, because I saw that it was posted on your page there, I also called. And the same thing, I ran into the 10-second time limit.
People did. And I encourage every single person that's watching this right now, call.
And what we really need to have is the mother's call, because, you know, when these things are happening to the fathers, they're picking on the fathers. This is, again, a very sexist sort of approach that they're taking. But many of these fathers are remarried and have families. They're hurting their current wives. They're hurting their current children. They don't care about them. They don't realize what the unintended consequences of their bad policy are. And Eric, if you have bad policy, it will lead to bad practice. I remember reading about one leader a long time ago. He wanted to help out the single mom, so he was giving them a certain amount of money because they were single moms. Well, what happened as a result of that policy? All of a sudden, there's a lot of single moms. Hey, we want the money. We want the money. And this is what child support sometimes does to some people, that they, you know, and I've talked with sheriffs, and they've told me, listen, said in my community, one guy was black sheriff, very honorable person. He said, listen, in my community, I know of women, they want to have 3 different fathers because it's 3 different sources of income. And they want to have their children, but they want to be set for life. And we've already seen this with some of the people that, try to get involved with an athlete or a rock star or something. And by the way, I want to just talk one other quick thing here, and I'll let you get back to what you were talking about. The Texas Attorney General bragging about the $4.8 million. So that was a 10% increase over last year. And it's interesting how when the economy is in the tank, people are looking for stimulus checks or whatever because businesses are being destroyed, again, by bad government policy. The Child Support Enforcement Division increased their collections by 10%. How did they do that? What type of additional threats did they use? And I also know what else they did. As you mentioned, Eric, stimulus checks that some of these heroes on our front line needed were confiscated by the government. And it was like free money to them. And the people who needed it, the people who were also being impacted by not being able to work, by losing their jobs, maybe having their businesses shut down, that could not pay what often is an unjust child support payment, get doubly punished and then threatened. I cannot tell you how brutal and these tactics are, and abusive. And they've never addressed these issues. And I don't think they're going to be addressed, though, until some of the women start to say, we've seen this. Because Eric, we've had mothers that have seen this, and they're weeping over their sons, or we've had wives that are saying, look at what's happened to our family because of this child support thing that has been put upon us, and this child support issue. If they want to really address child support, both parents mandatorily must be involved in their lives. And you could enforce some of that stuff too, because child support is more than just child finance. And how much does it cost to raise a child? Does it really cost, if you have 50% shared parenting with somebody, there's 3 children, and you have to pay your ex-wife $2,750 a month because she's never worked in her life?
Well, we're going to get to that next article. Yeah. And you think you guys are mad now, but you just gave me an idea, Jeff, and I think I could pull it off in today's climate. We do need women to speak up for us, but
absolutely,
so many people are afraid to speak up. So I'm thinking about shaving, get me a nice wig and maybe a dress, and I will go in one of the next political conferences and I identify as a woman. Talk to me.
Absolutely.
I'm just kidding.
No. But Eric, I'm actually with you on this, because look, if you all of a sudden say, you said, you know what, I'm feeling like a woman, I'm transgendering in my mind. Now we have protected speech, right?
Yeah. I mean,
I said hate speech, that you're not letting me speak as a woman right now because I'm identifying as a woman.
What's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Right. So, but Eric, one of the things that I've appreciated about you and that you've mentioned repeatedly, people talk about toxic masculinity or whatever, but the reality is the biggest problem is that we have discredited masculinity and there is a lack of masculinity. And that's why fathers are important. That's why we need to model to our children and to our grandchildren how fathers protect, how fathers fight, how fathers go out there and go forward for justice. Right. And we need to be leaders in this. We should not be ashamed of saying that we're out there, we're fighting for fathers. Our children are going to be fathers someday. I'm fighting for my grandchildren and my children. My grandchildren are going to grow up. I would hate it. I would absolutely despise the day if they came up to me and said, Grandpa, did you know that these things happen? Yes, I know. Did you do anything about it? No, we didn't. Why not? No, they will never be able to say that. We need to be fighting right now, because what we do today is going to impact tomorrow's generation. And if we as dads are not standing up to fight for this is a war on fathers, as you've said.
Absolutely.
And Eric, when I went into the military, I never wanted to go in for war. I just was going to go in for my college fund, right? But then we had 2 wars. We had 2 conflicts. I'm like, okay, so that wasn't really what I was anticipating. But you know what? If I got called, I had to defend the country. When I went in there, I signed a contract with the government that basically said my life is expendable so that you can put me where you need to defend our country. And we need fathers today that are going to be saying, you know what? We're fighting for our children. We are fighting because no matter who's in front of us, the people behind us, our children and our grandchildren are so precious to us that we will not let this war against fathers continue further, because I've got sons that are going to become fathers, and I do not want to see them become casualties of the upcoming war.
Absolutely. So a lone parent Ira said, Eric in a wig and high heels. Hey, watch that mouth now. It was a joke. Hey, man, I love cutting up. Sometimes we get a little bit of flack for that, but I think it's good. When we're facing these problems, we got to learn to have a sense of humor. Yeah. We definitely do. And, really, you could probably pull it off. I'm not so sure that that's what I'm going to do, but
well, Eric,
if somebody does it, it's an idea. I threw it out there.
So just to let you know, Eric, this was way back before you were even born. I was in elementary school, fifth grade, I think. Maybe it was 5th or 6th. I don't remember. But, this was the time when long hair was in, and my mom wanted me to get my hair cut, and I wouldn't get my hair cut. So I went to school with a ponytail, right?
Hey, I had one down to my butt, man.
No, but one of the teachers made me get up on the table and turn around while all the guys whistled at me. So the next day, in response, three boys in the school wore dresses wore dresses the next day. I think the principal had a nervous breakdown at the end of that year. I don't know. I don't do that anymore.
I'm going to bring in this next comment. So Win Ford said, I'm curious, how likely is it this bill going to be passed? Let me be straightforward and honest with you guys. Until we learn how to organize, and when these things come up, we show our presence and say, we are not going to take this anymore.
Right.
Guys, what scares me is this community has not organized enough, and it's so
Right.
factioned because somebody's afraid somebody else is going to get some type of credit. We're never going to get anywhere like that. We're never going to get anywhere until we stand up, make our presence shown, and make sure that these things go viral. And when we have rallies, if this bill goes to be heard, we need to be outside there. We need to be rallying and saying, we are not going to take this. Now, if it was, there's going to be other people that love this happening. They want to see this happen, and that's going to play in to the next article, and we're about to get this. Going to read this next comment, and then we're going to jump straight into it. Sabrina Hayes said, I am a grandmother. My son is non-custodial parent, and I just called Senator Cotton's office. I, too, got the 10-second warning. I will be sending an email as well. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to go here in a minute. And before we get off this show, I'm going to get that information and I'm going to post it down there in the live chat. And every one of you, email, call. There is power in that. When they see you, look, I can make those calls all day long. I can say I represent 250,000 people. The fact is, a lot of the times, a lot of those people stay silent. And then these things overrule us. I don't want to be the face. I want people doing the same thing. There was a model. If you don't know what to do, go follow what I just did and make that call. Show the support. Even though I don't live in Arkansas, I'm going to make sure that they know and they're going to hear my voice.
And Eric, not just Senator Cotton. He's the one who's introducing the bill or has introduced the bill, but we need to be calling our state senators as well. Because it's, he might hear from us, but he might not even say anything about it. They may not get to our calls. We need to be putting our state senators on alert. We are against this. So if you live in Texas, if you live, it's not just Senator Cotton. We need to be calling in Texas, Senator Cruz, Senator Cornyn. This is an atrocious thing. But the problem is, somebody asked, what is the likelihood of this passing? When men can be the whipping boys, the likelihood of it passing is large.
We are only the whipping boys because we let them.
Absolutely.
Guys, these people work for us. They are elected officials that are put in office because of we, the people. If we, the people, don't stand up and hold them accountable, we are just as responsible for this happening. If you don't get out there and vehemently oppose it, then you're supporting it. There's no other way to put it. Your silence supports it. So please get out there and do that. All right, let's get on to this next one because I know we're about halfway into it, and you guys are going to have a field day with this one. It plays into the first one. All right, so this was an article that got passed around last night. I want to give a shout out to Ryan Powell for tagging me in it because I definitely got a kick out of this. Should moms get paid for being moms? Some think so, and there's a new plan to provide a $2,400 monthly stipend. What if moms were given a $2,400 monthly stipend for their often invisible labor? That's the plan proposed by Girls Who Code founder, I can't say that name, in a new op-ed for The Hill. Sewanee is calling on President-elect Joe Biden to create a task force dedicated to implementing a Marshall Plan for moms during his first 100 days. For a history refresher, the original Marshall Plan, also known as the Economic Cooperation Act, passed in 1948 and provided funding which totaled more than $12 billion to help Western Europe rebuild after the war. Sewanee's proposing a means-tested $2,400 monthly payment to the women who are the bedrock of our economy and society. I want you to go and read this whole article. I'm not going to sit here and read the whole thing to you, but it goes even more. They're asking for just more than that. So now you've got a bill that is going in. They're going to try to put into office. They're going to try to get that into play to make sure that fathers was called out. We want to raise the child support, but we're going to give you the resources to get out there and work for it. Thank you, government. Thank you so much. But now let's call on for a new bill to give moms a $2,400 a month stipend and increase the child support. And people say there's not a war against fathers. It's time for you to wake up. And this is two completely different sides of the spectrum. This is a Republican thing and it's a Democrat thing. This isn't a partisan issue right now, guys. We are being attacked from all ends, and I'm going to tell you, I have my views politically, but I don't care who it is. If they come up with something bad in that office, I'm going to call it out. I'm not just going to vote on somebody because of political party. We've got to get out of that mindset. This isn't football here. We don't pick a football team, and that's the only one we root for. If they're making bad plays, you need to call them out, or they're going to continue doing the same things. This is the kind of crap that makes me want to run for office, Jeff. And the last thing I want to do, I'm seriously thinking about it, dude. I'm serious. I want to get in there and bang some heads together. But we'll talk about that at a later date. But what do you guys think about this? $2,400 a month. It's crazy, man. It's crazy to say there's not a gender bias out there, guys.
So, Eric, these people that come up with this stuff, they don't understand the division of labor and stuff like that. Really what we should be looking at, we've changed the whole paradigm, the way that our society used to be run. It used to be, and whether you like this or not, but it used to be that by and large, the man would be the breadwinner, right? And the mother had a different role at home. And now we want the fathers to go out there. We want them to make the money and everything else. Now we want them also to be coming into, to basically be doing the role of the mothers. And we've taken the whole family, we've taken the family unit and we've destroyed it. There's confusion within our roles. I don't have a problem, honestly, Eric, and maybe this dates me a little bit age-wise. I actually, when we had children, I wanted my wife to be home. Because I said, who's going to be rearing the children? Is it going to be a daycare? I don't want that. I did not bring children into this world to have strangers raise them. I wanted my wife to be there. And she was, at the time, she was a good person. Somebody could trust, was, honorable, everything else. All of these things, I wanted that. I wanted them to know the security of family. Yes, dad is out working, but dad comes home. And maybe dad's dead tired or whatever. But, you have the family unit. You're not renting a mother by pulling in a nanny, and I understand some people do this. I understand the economic realities and everything, but one of the things I've thought with COVID, honestly, I thought maybe this is a good thing, because maybe it's getting us back to saying, I've heard people talk about now they're focusing a little bit more on their family. That's not a bad thing. Family is the essential bedrock of society, and family is the foundational unit. You have weak families, as the senator said last night. You have a weak society. You have a weak nation. You have a weak state. You have weak churches. You have weak everything. And so this idea about paying mothers, the payment should be, if you had longevity to a marriage, that if you knew that entering into marriage, it was going to be for 25, 30 years, a lifetime. You're both willing to invest into that. What's happening with no-fault divorce is now women have to go out to the workforce so that they can have their own job to take care of themselves in case they find themselves divorced. Well, don't get divorced. But the problem is right now is that divorce on demand is an everyday occurrence. But this idea now, the $2,400 stipend, where do you think that money's coming from? Because before you know it, like these state agencies that need to be reimbursed with child support, like with the Child Support Work Act, men will be paying for it. You'll be paying to give stipends to your wife through the government. And the reality is, a lot of men that I know, not all, but a lot of men that I know, I think that they're very generous as far as the money that they earn. It's not just like their own money. They often have a small account somewhere for themselves, but everything else is to the family. And often, not always again, but often it's the mother, the wife, who controls a lot of the spending. It's just the division of labor thing that takes place. And I know that there's a lot of variation in that too, but
it's not so much the problem with the individual mothers as it is the system that is encouraging this behavior from the mothers. Okay, I don't believe it. Look, guys, it hasn't always been this way. It has not. I've got a beautiful mom, but she's from a different generation and got a whole different set of values than with a lot of the ones that I see nowadays. Now they're being told just because they're moms, you're going to get a $2,400 stipend. Now you got a senator wanting to put a child support bill in. Didn't even mention moms and say, we're going to increase it, but we're going to give you resources. It has made this sense of entitlement. It's made them feel like us as fathers, we're just less than because we didn't give birth. There's just so it stinks, the entitlement. I can't stand it. We got a comment from Tech Moore. He said 70 billion annual business industry. I do not see much change in politically. Have to get in and fight for your kids and then get the hell out of the system. Tech Moore, let me tell you something, brother. You've got a opinion that I believe many people follow, and I understand why they do. And I don't do this respectfully disagreeing, but the problem is many people have been a part of this system, and then instead of getting back in here and trying to change it, their situation's over and they just move on. We got to get people in here and get involved. We need people that hasn't even been through these issues to get involved, because it can happen to anyone. And just because you're over it doesn't mean that your kids aren't going to go through it. Hell, look, they're trying to change the laws and make them even worse now. That could be your son. That could be your daughter.
Yeah.
It's crazy, man.
And Eric, when you look at, you talk about the children, as I've talked about the children too, what's going to happen to them in the future. Right now, the state thinks that if you go through a divorce, they have to determine the best interest of the children. I mean, the state is basically saying they own your children. They are going to be victims. Don't for one moment think that the state is going to treat our children kindly. They will not. Our children will grow up, and they may become the children that don't graduate from high school. They may become the drug addicts. They may become the suicide victims. They may become the people that are involved in gangs because they're looking for some type of activity, something that is their family. Every single social malady is compounded by a factor, not just by a small percentage, by a factor, sometimes a large factor, by family breakdown, by divorce, by families not forming together. And, when you talked about mothers, Eric, I want to go back to this. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit all over the place. This whole thing was a big surprise to me, honestly, the whole thing today. But, I've heard of kids, and they cannot believe when there is a mother who is staying at home, and that this is the mother who is there. Man, wish we had a mother like that. And I'm not saying this to disparage any mother at all, but I'm just saying, what do children need? Children need the security of knowing both parents. And a lot of times it's more the mother because the father's working. And I know that there's families in which the mother works because she's a highly paid professional and the father's at home. I understand that too. But
is it viewed the same?
That's a good. I'm not.
It is not.
Go there.
It is not. I'll call it out for what it is. It's not even viewed as the same. When you hear that the man's not working and the woman is the one that's the breadwinner, we view that completely different than we would view it on the other side. I was having this conversation, talked to a gentleman earlier this week. He was raped by his foster mom when he was 16 years old. He should be coming on the show sometime soon. Now, when we hear that, it's like, oh, that's unfortunate. But if that was the other way around, his foster mom only got $100 fine, Jeff, in probation. If that was the other way around, man, the guy would be under the jail. We view it so much different, and it's not about making a bias or, trying to make division. It's about, come on, let's wake up. There is a problem with our men and boys right now, and this system. If these laws get passed, you're about to see it even more worse. I got a comment from Dad Surviving Divorce, Dwayne Roberts, here on YouTube. Got a great show, guys. Go ahead and check it out. I've been on it numerous times. But he said, if they said the custodial parent would get a $2,400 a month stipend and then turn off mandatory child support, that could be an option. And let me tell you why. I like that. It's not going to happen, because then Title 4D is not getting fed. We know that. It's got to be where the funds are coming in from one of the parents, so the system is getting the money. It's not really about creating any type of support or making sure that the family's got their necessities. At the end of the day, it's this system, it's this government that likes to profit off the destruction of broken families.
Right. So, Eric, in our Texas Family Code, it says this: in order to promote the public health and welfare and to provide the necessary records, this code specifies detailed rules to be followed in establishing the marriage relationship. And it talks about the need to provide stability for those entering into the marriage relationship in good faith, the need to provide orderly determination of parentage and security for the children of relationship. So, there's something that the state is saying, we need to protect marriage. We need to protect this for parentage, for the children, for the people, the participants entering into it. And yet, when you have marriages that the state will dissolve on the petition of one person with no proof whatsoever, I actually think that they should be liable for this. They should be actually made to pay. And the reality is, when I say the state being made to pay, it's going to be taxpayers. And taxpayers already are paying, but this cost that they're paying is actually being hidden from them. There was a study done in 2008, and I think at the time it said that between unwed childbearing and divorce, the taxpayers had at least $112 billion a year in taxes to support this stuff, at least. But we're not disclosing that. And imagine, so here we are, 2020. Is it double that? What if 112 billion was a very conservative figure, which the author said it really was? What if it were more like, say, 250 or 300 billion dollars a year that we are subsidizing single parenthood and the divorce industry, the taxpayers? Eric, every time somebody gets a divorce, they say, okay, your tax bill has just gone up another 50 cents, and then, but, each, and that's a larger number, but I'm just saying, if all of a sudden you're, well, why am I paying for the divorce of somebody else? Well, you are paying. They're just not telling you that. So the idea that, the state would say, okay, you want to have a custodial parent, you go ahead and support the parent, and the other guy or the woman is off the hook. Feel free to do that. I mean, that has some merit, at least for the discussion that needs to be had. I think the entire system is abusive. It's one of the most evil and oppressive systems that exists. I think in many times it ends up almost being slavery. And I think they destroyed numerous other people along the way.
So, guys, down in the comments, I am posting the senator's contact information. Please do me a favor. Be respectful. Give them your thoughts, but be respectful and let them know what's going on, because we want them to know that we have genuine concerns. But I did put it down there for you. I do want to touch on something, Jeff, though, because we got somebody here in Georgia, and it plays into my situation. Tech Morris said, I am in Georgia, and I have true 50-50 joint custody, legal, and still pay child support. Stupidity. So I just got 50-50 custody in Georgia earlier this year, and I don't think mom's going to have a problem me talking about this, because we equally thought it was ridiculous. We came together without the court. We went and sat down at a Burger King, and now my daughter is with me, and she's going to school with daddy this year. Okay. We got 50-50 custody. We communicate, and we said, look, no child support. We're going to try to, get it. You can't do no such thing as no child support in the state of Georgia. Even if the parents agree with it, it is mandatory. Somebody has to pay child support unless your incomes are almost exactly the same. What does that tell you about the system?
Yeah.
And
absolutely. The same thing here in Texas. I mean, you can make a prenuptial with the person that you're marrying, but when it comes down to child support, you can't put anything in. You cannot say, if for any reason we get divorced, there will be no child support. The state will not let you do that. So when the state is profiting off of broken marriages, when the state is profiting off of the child support system, there is definitely a conflict of interest. And I mean, I think that this is corrupt to its core. This is a criminal syndicate in many instances, from my perspective, and it needs to be called out as such.
Y'all want to see Jeff Morgan get fired up? We got a comment in here that he's pretty passionate about. I'll put what he put right here first. Vital Limits here on YouTube said, get rid of no fault divorce BS.
Absolutely.
Vital Limits said, state licensed marriages should be a choice. Otherwise, if the people are religious, the state should not be able to intervene and let the church handle it.
Absolutely.
He's going to want to answer that. I'm going to let him.
So absolutely, because number one, for many people that get married in the church, it is a religious vow that they've taken to God. If you're Catholic or Orthodox, it is a sacrament of the church. Now, the state always says, well, let's have separation between church and state. If marriage is a sacrament of the church, why does the state have any role and any authority to dissolve a marriage? They should not. This should be a church issue. If you go back to Russia under Vladimir Lenin in the early 1900s, 1917, 1918, one of the things that he did, he took marriage from the jurisdiction of the church and put it under the jurisdiction of the state. That was the first thing he did. The second thing he did was institute no-fault divorce. And no-fault divorce, as I've said in many instances, it is the marketing term. It is the lipstick that is put on the pig. It's really divorce on demand. Divorce for any reason, divorce for no reason. It's forced divorce. It's imposed divorce. And it's a divorce that you have no defense against. There is a predetermined outcome. One person files, and if he or she wants a divorce, that will happen. All you're doing is talking about asset division. So there's no defense. This is the only thing that, could you imagine going into law and saying, you know what, I'm going to win my case. I'll just sue everybody for anything. And I know I'm going to win. Divorce has a predetermined outcome, a divorce lawsuit, and it is a lawsuit. But this whole idea about unilateral divorce, no-fault divorce, again, it's nonsense. You might there are some people that can argue that if two people mutually want to separate, you could say that. I think that once you have children involved, that becomes a very big difference issue because marriage is for the children. It's the best environment for them. You need to know that if you divorce, in all likelihood, you are bringing trauma to the children. Even in spite of the glowing stories that we hear about 50-50, it is not the same thing coming from a broken family as it is coming from an intact family with two parents who learn how to work things out. Many divorces are unnecessary. Many divorces never should have happened to begin with. There are things called unnecessary divorces. And the interesting thing about this is that you'll have judges that would say this, that we see people initiating divorce and really what they're doing is calling out, it's a cry for help, and we're not helping them. We're sending them to the execution chamber where we're giving them the poison pill of divorce. You think you have problems before divorce? Look at what happens after divorce. Your problems will probably multiply. And not in every instance, but I'm saying that many divorces are needless. This idea about unilateral divorce, we actually have a case right now before the Supreme Court. If you go to the United States Supreme Court and look under the dockets, type in the name PANCO, P-A-N-K-O-E. And it is to try to get rid of a statute in Pennsylvania that is a viewpoint-based statute. And the reason we say viewpoint-based is because in the case that is in front of the Supreme Court, should they hear it, the courts and everything have said the man did nothing wrong. The woman wanted out. She thought her marriage was irretrievable. So what they did, they took her viewpoint and they said, okay, we are going to endorse her viewpoint and we're going to give her the divorce. But his viewpoint was it's not irretrievable. And yet the state made a decision based on viewpoint, not on action. So this is a viewpoint discrimination issue. And it's also because the state always sides with the petitioner in these instances, it is a violation of the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. And to the respondent, he or she has no recourse, no due process, nothing he or she can do to bar the lawsuit. So this becomes a constitutional issue of grave importance. And actually, I believe that almost every single one, if not every one of the Bill of Rights of our United States Constitution is violated via no-fault divorce, unilateral divorce. And especially when you look at the children, where are the voices of the children? And I asked this, Eric, at a 50-50 shared parenting conference. I was there. And I said, should children have any rights to protest their parents' divorce? And one of the people said, no, absolutely not. Really? Why not? They're the ones that are going to suffer the impact and the consequences of this divorce in many instances for years, and some instances for their entire life. Some people may just seem to be fine with the whole thing. But this, you are causing trauma to your children. Even if divorce needs to take place, even if it needs to take place, it can still be traumatic to children and they need healing. But when it doesn't need to take place, when the state causes destruction of a family unnecessarily, I think it's almost criminal what the state is doing, and that maybe we ought to start filing against the state under the Criminal Compensation Fund, because what they have done is completely criminal. It's unconstitutional. Our divorce doctrine in the United States actually is a 21st century version of what Vladimir Lenin imposed upon Bolshevik Russia. The only thing is the communists had enough sense to say, man, we are destroying our society. We have to get rid of this no-fault divorce stuff. And they actually modified it. But we just keep putting more and more lipstick on that pig and expecting that, like, if we put 5 pounds of lipstick on the pig, maybe the pig will turn into a princess. It doesn't. It's still a pig underneath. So you're right. I get off on this, but there is a case in front of the United States Supreme Court right now. Go to United States Supreme Court, go under the case search or docket or whatever, type in the name PANCO, P-A-N-K-O-E. It's free, that you can download the entire petition, the appendix, everything. We're very involved in this case. We'd love to have the Supreme Court hear it. I think the merits of the case are strong. But, it's something that we have to get rid of, this no-fault divorce.
Absolutely. Sabrina Hayes said there should be requirements beyond fault before divorce. What have they done to try to remedy their differences? What plan do they have going forward? I think family court is the first thing that's rushed to, especially during divorce, because we know what's ahead of it. And I wish parents had some type of resources. There was some type of process that we tried to get them on the same playing field before trying to put them in there and argue over who's going to get what, the custody time.
Right.
I mean, it's crazy because that's a part of the conversation that doesn't get talked about enough. And Jeff, me and you've talked about it numerous times. Right. Is the major problem is the prevention is our marriages are failing. Why are our marriages failing? I believe entitlement plays into that. And it definitely plays into that. And just the way that relationships are looked at altogether. I did that episode on men going their own way the other day. And to most people from the outside looking in, they would say, I don't know, man, that sounds kind of extreme. It sounds kind of stupid. But when you see what these guys have went through in family court, what you see when they've went through in their relationships, I understand why they're going their own way. When I talked to the senator last night, I told her, I said, look, I went through a divorce. And then next time I went to go get in a relationship, I was like, I don't know about marriage. And I came from a Christian household. You weren't supposed to be in a house with a woman until you was married. And some of my family didn't like that. But I said, look, next time I get in a relationship, I'm going to know this is the person that I want to be with all the way through. And me and Tina, we stayed together for a couple of years. And that before I got married, I was a lot more sure the next go round and a lot more reluctant to go just jump straight into it. But our marriages are failing at like soaring rates, guys. And Jeff is the one that said it the best. 50-50 is what we advocate for most in this community when it should be 100-100. The best solution is to have mom and dad in the home. Sometimes that's not going to happen. I understand why you guys get divorces. I've been through two. So I understand it. But I would love to see us get back on the same track. And it's not about hating on women, man. I love them so much, and I believe there's relationships out there. Some of you just haven't found them, and you are going to have the best life that you could ever imagine. But be careful with what you choose. A lot of times, the problem is on us guys, and we don't say it because we choose with our eyes rather than our minds and what's best for us. And especially nowadays with the spandex and all of the yoga pants and everything that's going on, it's easy to get, wandered off on the wrong thing, man. Go for somebody that's got respect for themselves and that's going to respect you just as much as you respect them. And that might be a start. But I'm so glad, dude, we broke a record here for our live viewers today. And I'm glad you guys are here. If you are, make sure you are subscribed and ding that bell up at the top. We are still fairly new over here to YouTube. We've been putting all our attention over here. Because I promise you, as much as we're in a war inside a family court, our issues are being attacked on social media. I've got the snapshots. I will show it to you. I've got a page with 250,000 people for that organization right there. 250,000 people. Facebook showed a live video last week to 100 people. 100 people. They want it silenced. And we will not be silenced anymore. I don't plan on being silenced, and it only makes me even madder. It makes me want to get louder. I was kind of getting a little bored there anyway. Once they did that, I was like, you just waged war with me, buddy. I'm going to get out there and I'm going to build a new platform, and we're going to get even louder. And guys, there are so many good politicians. Jeff was with me earlier this year when we was in DC talking to them about fatherless issues, parental alienation, and they do care. They're not all the people that we showed today. I know a lot of people that are very big on Senator Cotton. They said they were very disappointed with getting this information today. Maybe there's another side of that story. And if there is, Senator, we've invited you on. Please come and talk to us. And I will apologize to you on the screen. But right now, what I see, it stinks. But we've got to get out there. We've got to get involved in this process. And we got to show them votes. Politicians care about two things: money and votes. If we might not be able to show them the money, but we damn sure got votes, man. It's around 30 million parents that are affected by family law and these issues that are going on inside the family courts inside of the United States of America. We do make a difference in elections. We make a big difference. We're not just a issue. I believe we are the number one issue. And when I go to talk to these people, I say that, and I say it with confidence because I believe it. I know it to be true. The problem is, are people speaking up?
Yeah.
Speak up. Do not be silent anymore. You want to know why the movement's not doing anything? Because everybody's not speaking up. And if you're one of the ones that's watching and you're one of the ones that's involved, I want to hear your voice. Let's hear from you. And I know some people don't want to put their situations out there on the internet. And guess what? You don't have to. You don't have to go and talk about it. But please do get involved. We need you involved. There's so many different ways, and I wish there was time to just go and create this whole big organization and get all these volunteers and say, you do this part, you do this. Guys, you just got to start doing it.
Yeah.
Jeff, what did anybody sit down and tell you this is what you need to do and this is what you need to do? You want to talk about you want to talk about a warrior. This guy does not sleep. I do not know how he does it. Sleeps like 2-3 hours a night. He'll be back up. He'll get his job done. And then he'll be out all night long interviewing politicians and different people about these issues. And you're going to see the same amount of passion that night on the screen as you did a week ago, every single time. We need more Jeff Morgans. And I know Jeff would gladly sit down and teach you guys how to get in contact with people and tell you what to say in the whole 9 yards. Wouldn't you, Jeff?
You know, Eric, I wish I were that much of an expert. The thing is,
you are.
I've done what I could. And Eric, the first thing that I've told you is that, when I started to talk about this in a camera in my backyard, I felt, how stupid am I talking to a camera about these issues? And, it's grown since then. But you were talking about politicians. Remember that one guy, that French man who was in the European Parliament who spoke with us at CPAC?
Yep.
I mean, so here is a French guy coming over telling us we've got to fight for our families. We are Americans. Fighting is in our blood for the right things. And if we are not fighting for our families, we're not fighting for ourselves. We are fighting because we want to see this system not be around for our children and our grandchildren. And we've been victims, but we're survivors. We have friends that have not survived it. And we want to make sure that our children do not have to experience any of them, if at all possible, and especially our grandchildren. But yeah, Eric, as far as I appreciate the accolades and everything, I do get a little bit more sleep than you realize. But at the same time, I mean, it's become the number one passion. Once I saw what was going on, I said, this is going to be what I'm devoting my time to. And I think that, if we have people that are doing this, God takes the little that we use and he multiplies it. And, so that's what I've tried to do. And fortunately I get to hook up with people. I mean, get to meet people and work with people that have a much stronger platform and everything. That's how we met up at CPAC last year. So it's always wonderful.
This is your platform. This is you, man.
Yeah.
Jeff Morgan, Darren Robinson, Melissa Isaac, and even Dr. Carlos that came on yesterday. This was built for the movement. It's not about this guy. I've got the logos out there because I want to brand it, but I believe in the message. I believe what we represent, and I believe something's going to be done about it. And some people might think that's crazy, but we'll see. We'll see. I was called crazy when I very first started this thing. A year and a half later, they're like, "Oh, I want to see your studio." It came from nothing, man. You just got to get out there and start going, guys. And we cannot allow bills like this to get passed.
No.
We can't. We can't.
And Eric, I think what we need to do is look at how we can all work together to develop a database for these things. So, for example, we have Senator Cotton's number and so on up there, but we need to have a database for every single senator from the United States, every single state, every single representative. And that's one of the things I'm waiting for, because I know that after our election, the Texas Tribune, I think, puts out all the emails for our new representatives and stuff like that in the state of Texas. So one of the first things I try to do is go down there, I create them, I put them into a spreadsheet, and then this upcoming session, I'm planning to actually start engage in some email campaigns with either weekly or maybe even twice a week, very short messages about the issue, so that by the time we get down there and talk about it, I will have seemed like an old friend of theirs after they've heard from me 20 times. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. Either that or an old enemy.
Hey, man, most people are very sympathetic with the issues, but again, like we saw, they're told to stick with abortion, economy, all these other things, and this is just not a big issue, and it won't be until we make it one.
Yeah.
I plan on making one. I hope the COVID restrictions go away, because there's a lot of events that we've got invited to, and dude, after CPAC, we were getting invites all over the country, and then it got shut down.
I want the COVID restrictions to go away. You're correct, but I want the hearings down in the Capitol to continue online, because I'll tell you what has happened, Eric. So for me, for example, I was able to testify at various things that I never could have made it to. But now that they're having these Zoom hearings, I'm like, I can do that, And it actually, we had people apologize. We apologized for the Zoom meetings. And I'm like, oh no, please keep it going. Because if it were not a Zoom meeting, I would have to travel 200 miles to get down there to testify in front of you for 3 minutes. And then I would have to drive back. The fact that I can testify in front of you right now at home. So I'd love to see them continue to do, open Texas, 100%. But at the same time, I want the ability so that we, the people, can actually have a voice in our government. Because we go down there to testify at a hearing that's supposed to start at 10:30 in the morning, that doesn't start until 7 o'clock at night. We have to be there the entire day. We have to drive down there, be there on time, because if we get down there late and they decide to have it, then we lose the opportunity. But if we're down there all day just waiting around, we have to come back. Sometimes, it causes us to underperform or have to take off the next day at work. We need to have a system in place that the people can speak, and we need to be very actively involved in these issues. As you said, Eric, they represent us, and the way they're going to hear from us, we just have to go and keep talking to them and bring other people with us. And, I'm not sure what all the keys are, but, if we're silent, we lose.
Well, it takes one of the things that's the most unpopular conversation in this community, and to fight that corruption and to fight that, you need money, because they are dealing with big money and big resources.
Yeah.
And that's why that's scrolling down at the bottom of the screen. We created an app. There's a Dad Talk Today app, and I haven't really got to do much with it because everything costs. But the idea was to have your senators, your congressmen, your judges, where you'd be able to rate judges, where you'd be able to rate attorneys, where you would have all the contact information for your legislators. And it was a one-click, you're sending them a message. Here's your list of vetted attorneys. Here's your list of how to deal with this situation, this situation, this situation. But it's so much work. But we can have those things.
Right.
We can definitely have those things. And to have it in a click, that just better equips our people to be able to do something about it and become proactive in fighting against the system. So guys, it's out there. Just need a little bit of help with it. If there's somebody that knows how to set them up or would like to help fund it, let me know. I mean, you can go on Android and iPhone and find it. I think it's under Dad Talk Studios right now, but we're going to get some more of that stuff going, I believe. As this continues to go on, we're just going to continue to grow. Just here on YouTube alone, I see the numbers starting to grow, and that makes me feel very good, because we've got to be able to access our people, man. Eventually, what they're going to do is they're just going to censor the message altogether. This is a very unpopular message, and why is the mainstream not talking about it? I've got a case right now. It would blow up on the mainstream. They won't touch it. They will not touch it. The case. I'm not going to say it out loud, but they're in Texas, man. It's one of those, when you hear it, it's like, are you freaking kidding me? 300,000 views on Dad Talk on Facebook, but the mainstream's not going to touch it.
Yeah. Well, that may change too.
Well, we'll see. Mike Whitney said it the best. I love my brother. When I very first met him, he said, when they do not represent you in the media, you become the media.
Yeah.
And that has been my motto. I was like, thank you. I needed that, because at first, you really take for granted the power that speaking out has. You never know who's watching this. Right. You never know who you're empowering. Our next greatest leader in this community might be watching this right now, and I'm ready to meet you. And I'll support you 100%. We need to be cultivating other people, but I know you've got work to do. We've been going for an hour and 7 minutes. Me and Jeff could probably sit on here for another 4 or 5 hours and still be rapping. But guys, make sure that you're subscribing and ding that bell, please. If you can, support the podcast down there at the very bottom, patreon.com/dadtalktoday. If you don't want to do Patreon, there is a PayPal. I appreciate each and every single one of you for showing up today. We will have another show on Monday. And if you got a topic that you would like us to talk about, please bring it in. But I want to make a little statement real quick, Jeff, because before too long, shows like you saw last night might be what dominate Dad Talk. And let me tell you, they're not the greatest for ratings, but they're the greatest for solutions. Okay. When we can talk to these politicians and we can bring our issues to them. And dude, who came to back me up yesterday? Dr. Warren Farrell. I don't think you can get any better backup when it comes to our issues than that. Yeah. But when these broadcasts happen, I need you to like them. I need you to share them, and we need to get them out there just to show them how many people care. Because it's one thing for us to get a conversation, but we want something more than that. We want solutions. Let's show them the votes. Let's show them our people. Jeff, thank you so much for joining me today, brother.
Eric, thanks for giving me a call. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right, guys. We will see you a little bit later on. Have a great weekend and see you Monday. Thank you for joining us tonight. We are fighting for the rights of parents worldwide. If you want to help support our podcast and for us to continue this mission, please join us at patreon.com/dadtalktoday. You will find us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, CloutHub, Parler, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Spotify, the podcast app, Google, Apple Podcasts. We're a little bit of everywhere. And guys, every time you like and subscribe, you help us continue this mission. Thank you, and we will see you next time.